Hello, I am Mukti Ananda Ma, and I feel compelled today to talk about this new world, this new earth in greater illumination and in greater um, expression and detail. What is at the foundation of this new world? What is bringing it forth is the awareness and the claiming of one's own divine eternal identity. As one becomes aware that they are eternal, that they are always existing, that there is always life, that the truth behind all experience is love, that one's own being is unlimited, this awareness, to be aware, to perceive, all happening in the inner eye, the imagination, the consciousness that is itself life, is indeed unlimited, where all things are possible, and therefore all identities of this self are possible, both mortal and eternal. As one begins to contemplate their self with a capital S and all the possibilities and options of perceptions to bring forth into reality through awareness and belief, being and living it, that perception in the now. Then one realizes that they can choose, that eternal life is achieved through awareness, not through some outside force, but through your own awareness. It is achieved only because it always is. The achieving only happens when the illusion drops. The illusion can drop with death, or it can drop right now. Right now, you can drop the need for death. For you can understand that the choice of eternal life can be made in consciousness. It can be made in the now. To live that out now. To remember now. To perceive eternal living now. To contemplate eternal life in all its attributes now. And in the perceiving and contemplation, the experience of that eternal life happens now. We always live in our inner eye first. It begins in life or reality, manifest, always begins in the impulse at the higher dimensions of being. And then, if you will, trickles down until it finally arrives in the physical world. As one contemplates their eternal identity, one realizes that that identity lives in an eternal world. that the world reflects the eternal identity. And bringing that to your awareness, you will witness the ever perfecting experience of the dawning eternity in yourself and in your world. You live in such a way where you may be called or call yourself a dreamer, a fantasy out of touch, even delusional. For you're living in your imagination first. For you have decided, you have chosen to leave the boundaries of the mortal world. And so you remove your fixation from the manifestations of the mortal world and you bring it into your consciousness, your imagination, which is your binoculars, if you will, into other worlds. And as you focus your attention on that, soon you are there in this eternal life. So that you are looking now through your binoculars at the mortal world from your eternal view. The importance of this communication is a reminder that when one wishes to leave an identity or world to experience something new, it must begin with awareness and attention in the consciousness of your own being. For attention in the manifested realm will continue to get you the manifested realm. Attention in the manifested realm of emotions and thought and physical reality is the same thing. One must rest and perceive in their own being an eternal impulse, the heartbeat of eternity, and allow that beat to magnetize the manifested thoughts and feelings and physical reality that you desire now, that you choose now to experience. It may feel odd in the beginning to live in this eternal identity. You will notice that in some ways it's vastly different than your mortal identity. In the way you move and speak, and the thoughts that occupy your mind, in the desires, as it should be. For a mortal world versus eternal world will be vastly different in what's experienced and the paradigms that hold it up. And so we will take questions now from Aaliyah, who has volunteered to be a representative of humanity.
Thank you, Mukti Ananda Ma. It's always so exciting when you're here and when you're speaking. One gets giddy almost like a child. And it's interesting, when one's a child, the imagination, the daydreaming, it seems so prevalent at that time where the mind wanders and children imagine whatever they want. in moving into the higher self through the imagination, are there any specific tricks, if that's the best word?
I would prefer
Dark
the
room,
expanded self,
the expanded self.
expanding into a greater identity.
Expanding into the greater identity. Is there a way to lock into this, being in a dark room, meditating, to really have it kind of um, where you have periods of time where you are in it for longer and longer durations? Is there
Meaning that your perception is on your eternal identity.
yes.
So, yes, this is, like I said, part of stabilizing the movie of your identity, the life of insert your name, is to have the habit of fixating on the manifested realms that we call thought, emotion, physical sensation, the world, the mirror, all these things, that which you experience. That keeps you in that movie, that world that you have chosen, and gives it a longevity, if you will, gives it sort of a logic, a timeline, a cohesiveness. But when one chooses, because one has awakened or enlightened in that paradigm and gone beyond it, seen beyond that paradigm, for the mortal world, they have seen beyond, recognizing that death is truly a choice. A choice means yes or no. At any moment, that is true choice. Then one must begin, as we've discussed, to perceive and put attention on a new identity born or arising or founded in a different paradigm. That's why I use the word eternal, an eternal paradigm for an eternal identity. And so to do this, it's helpful, yes, to spend time just in the feeling state, not in the recognition, in the perceiving state of your eternal nature, of your expanded being. Some may not be quite ready or interested in an eternal identity. Perhaps they're interested in an abundant identity at this time. That's the expansion that is taking place, not going all the way to eternal identity yet. Then one would spend time, invest time is probably a better way to say it. Invest time, invest awareness, invest your perceiving abilities in contemplating your abundance in your consciousness, the abundance of consciousness itself. There's many ways to do this. You build a habit to remind yourself, whether it's setting alarms, doing it at certain times of the day. It doesn't take long, 2 to 5 minutes, many times a day is more than enough.
Thank you. I wanted to ask something to peel back the curtain a little bit and give people and myself a feeling for what it's like to have uh, friends, true friends, as I like to call them, without end. in this eternal state. I imagine so many beings, archangelic beings, beings such as yourself, and what a wonderful thing to have true friends without end. And is there a way to elaborate on how we experience, I don't know if you want to call it community or other beings in the eternal self? Is there a way that that's...
Well, we are already doing that. The thing about eternal self is it's ever in all identities. You see, expanded self is inclusive of contracted selves. So the flavor of friendship will depend on the identity. There are there are eternal, infinite, eternal selves, just as there are infinite mortal selves, and those selves that can go in between two worlds. So the friendships, the communities will depend on the identity and what that identity's focus and perception is. If the attention is on an identity of community, of connection, and how that connection is lived, maybe it's lived in humor, maybe it's lived in creativity, maybe it's lived in purpose, maybe it's lived in adventure. There's so many flavors of community, just as there are identities, will depend on the identity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so as you listen to these words, what kind of community are you desiring? What is the flavors that are present in that community?
It's interesting that you say that. I have these, it's almost like different notes, whether it's flavor or musical, but you have these feelings of trust and love and companionship, friendship, but it's the difference is it's consistent. It's almost like a harmonic note. It's that doesn't break. It's an unbroken harmonic. At least in the feeling of connection.
So for you, it's in the flavors that you would like to experience are unbroken connection.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And so that's what you would focus in on. That's what you would perceive in your inner eye, in your consciousness. Your own eternal, unbroken connection to all and everything. And in that, you will begin to see that made manifest in your experiences, in your thoughts, in your relationships, in the world itself.
Yeah, it's almost like an unbroken. It doesn't have to be anything communicated. It doesn't have to be distance. But it's just that unbroken state that you would see, I don't know, between beings that are close in our mortal realm, like a mother and child or a father and child or something, or brothers, I don't know.
Yeah, so everything already exists, and that is already existing. It's not something that you're calling in. It's something that you're perceiving within your own consciousness, contemplating it, living the reality of it in your consciousness. And then you will experience it throughout the other dimensions of thought, feeling, emotions, sensations, the external world's physicality.
Yes, very, very beautiful. The whole thing has me a little bit lucid, just experiencing the in my imagination what that's like, and it's very exciting. The the time that we're coming up to, where there is this split of timelines or lightning flash of illumination, rapture, so many options. Um, can you speak to what it will be like for those that move beyond into this higher octave, and then those that remain? Can we speak on this?
Can you be more
Well,
specific?
I'm very curious as to, for example, what will differentiate. Is it I've heard it's the frequency that one holds, and that it's a frequency gate, and this is the
Yep. So
main.
we are splitting timelines all the time.
Mm,
In other words, it's not uncommon to veer off, to turn onto another timeline. That is not uncommon. What may be perceived as uncommon is that there is a world change in timelines. The world, so an individual may experience many, many, many timeline changes in a lifetime. You think about an identity that has an addiction to something very harmful, that overcomes that identity, expands beyond it, no longer has the addiction. It's very obvious that there'll be two different timelines.
right.
The new thing in this reality we find ourselves in is the world change. So the opportunity that many are waking up to is to experience a world that is on a different foundation, different octave of life, that has expanded beyond the choice of death, has expanded beyond the confines of separation and limitation, those choices. And so, in these identities, that's why choosing to be an eternal identity is greater, will impact the world itself. For an eternal identity is not confined by, will not exist within the framework or box of a mortal world. And in eternity, in that eternal vibration, the illusion of separation, the illusion of death, the illusion of hate, all these illusions, which are just really the lack of, have no life. So we're not sure if we answered the question.
Well, there's always more questions. Yes, the short answer is yes. It's just getting a feeling and an understanding of this pivotal shift, because this was written about, for example, um, by many people, both timeline shifts and the rapture, and this lightning flash of illumination where all of a sudden, boom, there will be many people missing in one reality, and that shift will have cemented, where you have, I don't know whether it's 5-dimensional, fifth dimensional space with those beings, and a fourth dimensional space with the other beings, and this kind of frequency as the key to the gate that is letting you pass through.
Yeah, so what's really behind your what you're speaking of is what I sense to be a concern that you want to make it to this opportunity of an eternal identity and world.
Well, for myself and for others, that is there a specific
Yes, it's
key?
simple. It's simple. It really is simple. It begins with the choice. I choose life. I choose the life more abundant. I choose eternal life and all that comes with it. So in choosing eternity, you give way to all things that are not that. You let all that drop. You're willing to be wrong about everything that you thought you knew about life in the mortal realm. To go beyond all that and to expand about the truths seen from the perception of eternity.
It's beautiful. But it brings the question, do we really choose death? How is it that we choose the opposite of that in our consciousness without even realizing it?
How do you choose? How do you choose the opposite of death?
The opposite of life, because you're saying choose life. And it's shocking to think that we actually choose death in our consciousness. Can you elaborate into how we're doing that without realizing it?
Well, you're really choosing that on a daily basis. You're choosing things that are not aligned with love in eternal life. So you're choosing things like an us versus them perception, not a perception of unity. So all these things, these choices that you make every day, are not founded in eternal life. They're founded in lack and separation. The perception of lack and separation, right? The perception of lack in others and the perception of separation in others. When you have a perception of us versus them, they are bad, I am good. They are lower, I am higher. This is not the unity of eternity. That is the separation from truth, the blindedness, if you will, being blinded to the truth. It's only through blindedness and lack of awareness of what is, attention on the truth of what is, which is life and only life. A denial of that creates all the offspring of death and death itself. Of course, death is not real. When one experiences death, they quickly realize there was no death.
Well, that was a lot to marinate in.
Yes. Well,
Mm.
let's leave this on a expanded, excited note of encouragement and inspiration to choose that eternal identity and know that much will fall away in that choice. But what remains is something greater, more wonderful, ever perfecting joy, and a new world to experience.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mukti Ananda Ma. This is amazing.
You're welcome.
What a lovely feeling.